Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. Tonight's topic is on survivor's guilt. Boy, is that everywhere you look. There's a new show called Code Black with Marcia Gay Harden, which I think is really good. It can get a little confusing. I've been in emergency rooms, so I know they're just like that. And she is guilty because she survived a big accident. Soldiers have it, people in major car accidents have it, people in plane crashes, people in train crashes. Any time there's more than one person involved and one person or more walk away and the others don't, they call it survivor's guilt. This is a very important thing for you to understand. When it's your moment to cross over into the astral world for the final time, because you do it every night when you're asleep, it's your moment. Your moment. Not mine, not somebody else's, not Gracie's. This is my little pussycat Gracie, for those of you who have not been watching regularly. She's my little co-host. And we're doing several shows today, and this is the final show, and she is right up here making herself known. She doesn't have any guilt about leaving those other little pets behind at the Humane Society, I promise you. She's got it made with her mother here. Survivor's guilt, it comes from people not understanding how the universe works and why it works. I have no idea why God decided to split us out from this great giant force of light and goodness and joy on individual paths. I think it's a dumb idea. I mention it every night in meditation. Dumb idea, not working. Nobody listens to me. But every lifetime, you are born with a different schedule, a different set of lessons, one from column A, 3 from column B, 2 from column C, etc. With certain people you have to be with. One of my favorite people was little Matty Stepanek. Do you remember him? Oprah Winfrey had him on. I do not remember the type of illness. I think it was multiple sclerosis, but I could be wrong. And he was a little boy who wrote beautiful poetry. He was blonde, he wore glasses. Very bright, very sweet, very gentle. His mom had the same illness. What he has is genetically inherited. But hers was a slightly different kind and not as debilitating as his, and not as quickly debilitating as his is. And so he wound up crossing over before she did. I would say, I think he was 11, maybe 13 when he crossed over. I don't say died because there's no such thing as death. It's just changing costumes. I've been changing outfits all day. Still me. This is the way Gracie is. I bought a Christmas hat for her this year. I'm going to see what it looks like. Not making any promises. If it goes well, we'll show you a picture. Every lifetime, you're supposed to live to a certain age and accomplish a certain amount of things. If you're new to this planet, you may only be in a woman's womb for, say, 3 months. I had 3 miscarriages, and I knew that was the case. And I knew that I was not to give birth. I was told by Yogananda that I will be pregnant again, but I will not have children in this lifetime. I've been very fortunate. I have an adopted daughter, but I was pregnant 3 times, and then I got my tubes tied. I knew the man I was married to I was going to be divorcing, and I didn't want any children with him. So take the responsibility, by the way, if you know you don't want children with this person, to have your tubes tied. They can reverse it now. If you get into a happy marriage, you want to have children, they can reverse it. But don't bring children onto the planet in an unhappy situation, because the kids are going to suffer. And they're not pets. Your children are not your children. You don't put your children before your spouse. It's you and your spouse as a team raising children. These are gifts. You have custody of them, like your parents had custody of you. Good, bad, or indifferent. They have custody of you. You have custody of your children. And your job, having custody, is to raise them brilliantly. If you have a brilliant child, give that kid every educational opportunity. creative, intellectual, and spiritual. Every child should be taught to meditate. They are in other parts of the world. Why aren't they here? You're afraid what your neighbors are going to say? I was never afraid of what my neighbors were going to say. They weren't providing food, clothing, and shelter and emotional support for me, so why would I care what they had to say? You should be the same. It is your job as a parent to raise your child as well as you can. And when people say children shouldn't die before the parents, that's a humanistic approach. Everybody should live until it's their time. Little Matty Stepanek would have suffered horribly had he lived much longer. And so the blessing was that he did cross over when he did. And he didn't have to suffer anymore, and he's free in the astral world, playing with the angels and his little friends who crossed over before him and people he loves from another lifetime. Maybe his pussycats and puppy dogs. Maybe he had a little sheep or a little goat that he loved in another lifetime. I was blessed as an infant by being kissed by an elephant. I pray for that elephant every night, who's long since in the astral world. So if your child lives to be 3, it's not a tragedy, I've lost my child. Yes, you're going to cry because you missed a little being. But that was the mission of that child, to live to be 3, or 10, or 15, or 18, or 21. That was that child's mission. So you as a parent should not be having survivor's guilt. And say in war, which was a lot of people from Iraq that I counseled. Women as well, because they would say, a lot of women were nurses, and they'd say, oh, if I had only had this medicine, or if the doctor had only got here sooner, or if only I had checked him again before I went to sleep and I fell asleep. I was up 18 hours. Nobody can be up for 18 hours and do a good job. They were guilty because they survived and their patient didn't. Or in a soldier's case, everybody was blown up, he survived. Maybe he walked away, maybe he's got one leg. I'm guilty. Why did I survive? I wish I was dead with them. If you were meant to be dead, quote unquote, with them, you would be. You are here because you have more work to do. You should never have survivor's guilt. They are free of their physical bonds. They are free of needing to eat, needing to sleep, needing to go to the bathroom, needing to shower, needing to bathe, needing to dig another driveway out of the snow, needing to sweat. All those things that are physical, that are unpleasant, that make life more difficult. Free of it. And most souls still hang around to watch out for their child or watch out for mommy and daddy. Sometimes in consultations, somebody will come through for that person. I'll describe them. I don't usually get names right off. I get the description of the person because they're standing there right in front of me. Dr. Oz had a woman who was a psychic medium on last night, and she sees everything to the right. I see everything straight. So I've had people say, why are you looking at my neck? I'm looking at your neck, but a TV screen has formed in front of me, and that's what I see. Same thing, I do phone consultations, same thing. I find something to stare at. It could be a candle, it could be a crystal, it could be my cat sleeping and I'm watching, I just see her fur and then that turns into a screen. That's how it works when I see straight on. Everyone lives according to the plan that they and their guardian angel or angels made. Just because someone is little doesn't mean that child is stupid. Child does not have the vocal ability yet, the tongue and tooth action to be able to speak the way you and I are speaking. Doesn't have the skills in life yet, in this physical life. Maybe they used to be, say, Chinese, and now they're having to speak English. I've had parents tell me that their children have spoken another language. Even in their sleep, they're speaking another language. And sometimes the parent recognizes that language, or they'll tape it and they'll send it to USF or FSU, and or the local high school, and they'll say, well, that's Ukrainian, or that's Russian, or that's Chinese, or that's Polish, or Italian. And how is that possible? This is a 6-month-old child. This is a year-old child. They remember from their last lifetime. Stop putting limitations on your child because somebody put limitations on you. And here's a sentence that drives me stark raving berserk. Well, that's how I was raised, so that's how I think now. Really? Are you still wearing your little pink dress with your little pink socks and your little Mary Janes? You're still wearing your little pull-up overalls with the little clips on them as a little boy? Grow up. Stop using how you were raised. And don't say, well, doesn't everybody? No, I was raised by 2 alcoholics, battered viciously by my monster mother alcoholic, absentee father alcoholic. I don't even drink, never have. Don't do drugs, don't smoke, a vegetarian, meditate. I have the heart of a 15-year-old. So therefore, if you do what your parents did, you're repeating their mistakes. You're there to learn what not to do. And therefore, if your parents die early, don't say, well, I'm going to die early too because my parents did. Well, maybe I drove my parents crazy. So what? That's the job of a kid. To test the parents, to make them think, to make them quick on their feet, to make them responsive to your needs and what is really bothering you. Don't get survivor's guilt. It's a waste of time. When you are meant to cross over, you will. I have had over a dozen near-death experiences. I can tell you that it's great over there. They wouldn't let me stay. I've told you before that I had a student stand up one day in a lecture. Were you there when Angela stood up? And I was talking about UFO experiences and how they sent me back, and I wish they hadn't, and how many times I had died, and they sent me back. They wouldn't let me stay. And Angela stood up and said, Linda, see, I've had all these near-death experiences, and now you've had UFO experiences on board, and they sent you back. Are you suffering from a rejection complex? I said, no, not until now. I didn't hit me that way. It bothered me for 2 days. No, it wasn't my time. I was there to get information, come back and give it to people. I had near-death experiences because I was given encouragement. I was given information that would help me get through the next week or the next month. And also doctors learned from me. I have a 96 body temperature. So everybody supposedly a 98.6, 100 isn't a big deal. For somebody whose base temperature is 96, 100 is a huge deal. That's why I was so often misdiagnosed. Doctors have learned from me. So everything we do is a lesson for ourselves, and it's a lesson for others. Survivor's guilt is a waste of the precious moments we have. We could be here talking, and all of a sudden, the earth could blow up. Is it wasted information? No, because everything we say vibrates in the astral world. You've heard of the term Akashic Records. It's supposed to be a giant book somewhere off with the big man god in the robe and the beard. The Akashic Records are literally a record of every soul's life. From humans on this planet to humans on other planets who look a little different from us, to pussycats, to elephants, to giraffes, to snow leopards, to lions, to tigers, to bunnies, to squirrels, to birds. They all have souls. They're bunny souls, they're bird souls, but they're created by the God force, the same thing that has happened with us. We are human-type souls, angel souls. We're all created as part of the jigsaw puzzle of life. What kind of planet would this be without nature spirits? What kind of a planet would this be without little fairies? You think there's no fairy kingdom? Try talking to the fairy kingdom. I've had blessings with the fairy kingdom. Fairies got me out of the woods one day when I was lost. How did that happen? They got my attention. It was one of those dead, still summer afternoons where you can't even breathe. And this was home up in New York on Long Island. And all of a sudden I saw a stand of ferns bouncing up and down, and turn blue. And then I've been psychic my whole life, so I knew that was little fairies. I just felt little fairies. A little blue line started coming out from underneath the ferns, just like this, bouncing, 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 turning this way, and a giggling. Fairies like to giggle. So I said, okay, God, here we go. And I followed the little blue line. You don't step on them. You walk behind them. And they took me as far as suddenly I realized where I was. I said, oh, great, now I know where I am. Thank you so much. Giggling, poof, they disappeared. They did their job. They got me out of the woods because it was going to get dark soon. And I didn't want to be in the woods all by myself. I was about 7, 8 years old. And fortunately on Long Island, there were no poisonous snakes. And there are no big animals. I don't even know if there are bobcats on Long Island. But nevertheless, there are fox, raccoons, possums. But I just didn't want to be in the woods by myself in the dark. And God and the angels knew that. And they sent the little fairies to rescue me. It was not my karma to die in the woods that night. And have the neighbors saying, oh, we should have checked, we should have seen, we saw her go by the house. You could go between houses and get to the lake. Oh, and make their lives miserable. That wasn't the karma. I just got lost. I went in a different way. People were having yard work done, and so I went in a different house. And I had forgotten that, and I couldn't place where I was. Survivor's guilt is a waste of each precious moment. Each moment we're on the planet is precious because it's an opportunity to take care of the karma that we have. Our menu, check the items off the list. To meet people we're supposed to meet. To let people in our lives who are good for us, who are kind, who are loving, who are caring, who are not sucking the life out of us like energy vampires. And to remove the people who are destructive. It's now politically correct to say that, but I've never been politically correct, so I've always said that. If somebody's eating you alive, if somebody is sucking the life force out of you, and I don't just mean if they have cancer or they're ill or they've had a car accident, you're being a friend. But we all know people who stick their fangs in your neck and they don't let go. It's like that awful commercial with the car suckers, the people that land on, because you're paying for other people's insurance. And so they're landing on this woman's car and she's got the windshield wipers going and they look like big sucker fish. And finally she sticks this little mechanism in her car and it shows that she's a good driver and off they go. We all know people like that. To remove them is your responsibility. I always say, if somebody is not good enough for, in women's case, oh, I just love him even though he's mean. If he's not good enough for your mother, your daughter, your sister, your best friend, they say, oh, no, of course not. Then what are you doing with him, idiot? I've done the same thing for men. If she is not someone you'd want your brother to marry or your son to marry or your father or your best friend, what are you doing with her? Just because somebody knocks on your door doesn't mean you let him in. Maybe you just peek through the peephole. Maybe you open the inside door. What do you want? Use your intuition. Trust that gut. Trust that gut. Especially if you live by yourself. It could be a crook trying to get in. The other night, there was a grandmother who chased 3 kids out of her house. They went flying. Fortunately, one didn't have a gun and turned around and shoot her. So just because somebody knocks, it's the karma to knock. It's the karma for you to know that person's there. Use your intuition, your gut, your soul's mind. That's what your intuition is, your soul's mind. Use your intuition to determine whether or not you let that person in and how long you let that person in. Maybe it's just an afternoon. Maybe it's just a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a year or two, and you let that person go. Because if you try to hang on to that person, you're stopping your own progress in life. You're keeping yourself off your own path. You're just knocking yourself right off your own path of progress. And you're keeping them from doing what they're supposed to be doing. I've written something called Thoughts on Meditation. And we can't all follow the same pathway on our journey of life. We all have to follow our own path. Sometimes with soulmates. Soulmates are people you've been with in other lifetimes. Happy soulmates are people you should be married to. You've been happily married, husband, wife, husband in other lifetimes, and you've come back again. These are the people who met each other in school and they've been happily married for 50 years, or they each married other people, then they came back together again, and they're a really good fit because they recognize each other as children. And so, therefore, when they get the opportunity to be together, they can be. So, those are happy soulmates. Now, soulmates and neutrals. Neutrals are people you may have met as a neighbor 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. They separate you out from the soulmates versus the people who are not kind. Or, I hate to use the word enemy, but the suckers of your life. The energy vampires. You have to use your intuition. Say you were told by your guardian angel you've got an hour left to live. How would you want to spend it? With one of these energy vampires or with people you love? Or kissing your cat? She's tired now. She's all reclining here, resting. How do you want to spend your life? Being productive? Meeting the God first, third eye to third eye and saying, I did a good job? Crossing over to the other side when it's your time with your angels and saying, I did everything I was supposed to do? Or are you going to spend your life being drained because you lost a friend, or you lost people in the war, or your neighborhood blew up and you and maybe one other family are left? Do something productive. You were left here because you have reasons to be here. God isn't stupid. The angels aren't stupid. They don't make those kinds of mistakes. Take something of comfort. If you can't have a real pet, get your babe the pig or a bunny rabbit and squeeze it. There's no surprise that babies love to squeeze something soft and squishy. It's comforting. It's like being on the inside of the womb. And so if you're an adult and you say, I'm lonely, I'm single, get yourself a stuffed animal of your choice. National Wildlife has a great catalog out now where you can donate 20 or any amount of dollars to that particular animal's care or research. You can get a bunny, you can get a snow leopard, you can get an elephant. I don't know why they have a diamondback rattlesnake there. I'm not thrilled with poisonous snakes. But you can get a stuffed pet that only you and God and the angels know about. Anything that gives you comfort like that. You're entitled to comfort. You may have been a person who was terrible in other lifetimes. Maybe you're a murderer. Maybe you were a bank robber. Maybe you're responsible for a lot of people losing their homes and their lives. You're going to be pretty lonely. Or maybe it's your opportunity to learn to be by yourself. That's not always a bad thing. You have to get to know yourself first. What does Shakespeare say? To thine own self be true. Get to know yourself. What kind of a person are you? Would you want you as a best friend? No? Write down why. Write down the good things about you. Write down the bad things about you. And see what you can fix. And don't say, well, my mother taught me this or my father taught me that. Are you still nursing? Are you still following daddy around on your little tricycle? Grow up, people. Survivor's guilt is a vampire sucking of your life force. You are here because you are meant to be here. And when your time is up, your time is up. Whether you die in a plane crash, whether you die in an explosion, whether you die in a hospital, it doesn't matter. When people say, oh, it's a shame she died in that explosion, maybe she had cancer. Maybe she was suffering horribly. There's an article here about cancer and about chemo could make the last days worse. All of us who have had friends or relatives who have had cancer know that. It's your job to say, stop the medication. I just want palliative care. I don't want to be in pain. Don't tell me I could be a junkie because I'm dying. I have 6 months. Who cares if I'm addicted to not cocaine, was it morphine or hydrocodone or OxyContin? That's the thing that everybody wants. Well, I don't want that. I've instructed my doctor, don't give that to me unless I'm fatal. So therefore, Life is a series of happinesses and unhappinesses, of pain, of misery, of sadness, of joy. And get to know yourself and fix yourself so that you would want to be your best friend. You can only do that by being with God and the angels. Check our website. I do consultations by phone, and make sure that you become the very best you can be. And if you just open up your hearts and minds to God's universal truth, you're going to know that God and the angels are always with you. Stay with us.